There are a lot of benefits of build to rent. The single largest benefit is that security.
It is fair to say that the appetite for renting is probably going to climb.
Things like costs, availability and competition. These are all things that build to rent could alleviate for some people.
The way people want to rent is changing. No longer does everyone want a house with a picket fence because more and more people are desiring connectivity over square meterage. And as more Australians begin to rethink what home actually means to them, the small living shift, along with an openness to long-term renting, is really gaining momentum. In partnership with Build to Rent developer Local, I'm joined by Matt Berg, the CEO, and Ben White, Market Research and Insights Manager at REA Group, to chat through the growing preference for simpler, smarter homes to rent. Ben, you're at the forefront of researching consumer behaviour when it comes to the property journey. Are you seeing a shift in what renters want in a home, but also in a lifestyle?
In our annual property seeker survey, we look to understand the differences amongst renters year on year. I think one of the things that we noticed was there's a shift in motivations. So where renting is typically seen as a way to cut cost and is a necessity, we're maybe seeing some renters looking at that a bit differently and seeing renting as a choice. So one example of that we've noticed is that some people are choosing to rent to access school zones that they previously couldn't, or accessing amenities that are a really desirable place to live. And so it really kind of uncovers this broader trend where renting isn't necessity, it's more of a choice.
And so why is this? How has this shifted, I guess, from years and decades past?
Yeah, so I think more broadly, we're seeing more consumers looking at the home as a place where they want to spend more time. They want to be in a neighborhood that's desirable and host more at home as well. So that's where I think the amenities piece comes in. But also 1 in 4 Australians are renting. So that's approximately 5 million people in Australia. And whereas maybe our grandparents and parents were looking at buying a house that they wanted to live in for, say, 30 years, I think people are now approaching that slightly differently. And it's not just thinking about the forever home, but maybe something that's for now.
Yeah, well, Matt, with these shifts in sentiment about what a home means, it really has opened the door for companies like Local to cater to the trends Ben was just speaking about. Can you explain the premise behind your company and what actually build to rent means?
Sure. I mean, the really dry version of what build to rent is institutionally owned housing or housing that's just owned within a single title, as opposed to sort of divided up. Say 500 apartment building and a mum and dad investor owns an apartment and they rent that out, as opposed to build to rent, which is the entire building is owned by that single owner. The really cool things about that is that you can actually fix a lot of these sort of intrinsic problems that sit within the rental market at the moment, these sort of pain points. Everyone's got their own horror story on rental properties, and whether it's being kicked out for renovation, kicked out because the owner wants to come back in, really long lines, maintenance that never happens.
Oh, an unexpected rental increase.
And a lot of people have had those pain points in the market for a very long period of time, particularly millennials. They haven't had a choice. And they're obviously squeezed between a housing market that they can't afford to buy into. They have different things in their life now, like kids, for example, a need to have a secure place. Perhaps they have ongoing employment. They need to sort of change their rental situation. And so build to rent looks to solve a lot of those issues.
Yeah, awesome.
And that could be from having an on-site team, which we do at Local, to sort of organise one-on-one leasing tours as opposed to sort of line up and see how you go leasing tours. We've got amenities within our building, and that's sort of part of the whole sort of lifestyle design that build to rent's known for. And that would be, a full-size gym, full-size co-working. And when I say full-size gym, I'm talking about a gym that you can actually rip your gym membership up for, as opposed to sort of those little hotel gyms. You can actually have your entire life within that building. And where we're sort of seeing that shift to smaller living at the moment with our customers is, call it the additional bedroom usage. Everyone at the moment who is touring 2-bedroom apartments, for example, after touring all those amenities that I described, who isn't using that second bedroom as a sleeping bedroom, perhaps they're using it as a utility room. A lot of them are seeing that and saying, maybe I can live in a 1-bedroom apartment and obviously save a little bit of money by doing that because I've got all my amenities externalized. And 1-bedrooms as well, we're seeing a lot of shift to studios. We do quite large studios. So I think that combination of factors is, people are drawn to build to rent as a concept, but they're also seeing it as a way to downsize their life.
Ben, do we know who's jumping on an offering like build to rent?
So At REA, we did our first survey looking into people that may be the target audience for build to rent. So we ran a survey with 750 consumers that are either considering apartment living or actually already living in a build to rent development. And I think the first thing that we found was that build to rent audience is likely to grow over time. And the reason I say that is because we saw 70% of our samples saying that they were open to this type of living arrangement after being introduced to the concept and the benefits that exist within it. The second thing was looking at actually the target audience. So they do skew slightly younger. 25 to 44-year-old people are most likely to be considered build to rent. And then the third thing I think is the mindset piece. So these people who are really liking the idea of build to rent, they like the idea of that luxury living. So using their rent payments to actually gain some of those amenities that Matt was talking to earlier, that nice gym, that kind of luxurious place to call home, and ultimately living in an area that they want to live in as well.
That's a great understanding of how consumer behaviour, I guess, is changing in terms of what people are looking for in a home. But I'd really like to move on to the idea of long-term renting, but even lifelong renting, because it hasn't been the traditional path in the past. But with growing affordability issues, stock constraints, increasing rates of immigration, it is fair to say that the appetite for renting is probably going to climb. Ben, do we have any insight into how Aussie renters are actually just feeling in the current market?
Yeah, we're seeing this sentiment in a lot of places. So really, renters are feeling fairly pessimistic about the market at the moment. Some of the factors that you both have mentioned today, so competitive rental listings where people are queuing down the street to try and get into the property, rising rental prices as well started with the pandemic and kind of rising since then. And so, I've got a couple of stats here for you. So we see that 1 in 3 renters feel confident in their ability to find a rental property in this market, which then conversely means that there's 2 in 3 that don't.
Yeah.
So there's a real lack in confidence there. And 7 in 10 say that they feel they have to make compromises to find a rental. So whether that's on price, location, or the features that they have. So there's a real kind of negativity when thinking about approaching finding a rental.
Do we know what is the root cause of all of this stress?
Yeah, so I think there's a lack of security. So, people are having to make compromises to get something they want, but then they could also be worried about, a landlord moving back in and wanting to sell the property. We see about 1 in 8 of our renters that are seeking for properties back in the market because they've been forced to. So it comes back to that lack of security and not having flexibility in a lease agreement that suits them. And also not having the flexibility to say that they want to move on when it's their choice rather than the landlord's choice.
Well, Matt, how are then professional renting models like Local combating this stress? And talk me through how they're also combating, I guess, that lack of security.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are a lot of benefits of build to rent. I would say for a lot of people, though, the single largest benefit is that security. Naturally, because you've got a single owner of the building who is not an owner-occupier in themselves. They're looking to rent those units out for a long period of time. And in fact, we actually see it as a big benefit if we have sort of long-term leases within the building. So it's sort of reversed in a way.
What's a long-term lease look like?
Sure. Yeah. So we do anywhere from 6 months as our minimum lease term to 5 years.
Wow.
So we offer that as part of our standard offering with, say, anything over a year. Say you wanted to do 2 years, for example, we can do a fixed rent increase. It's not necessarily about the security of knowing that you are going to be in the same place for a long period of time, but also the security of knowing what your budget is going to look like over the next, 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Which is a massive part of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the biggest benefit or one of the biggest benefits. But what is interesting, though, is, we're talking about build to rent right now, and I've explained what it is. Once you go and see it, once you understand the product, we offer these long-term leases, but the take-up on them isn't as big as we expected. And the reason behind that, we think, is because once a resident understands that they can stay there for as long as they want, why would they actually commit to a 5-year lease? Why would they commit to a 3-year lease? Perhaps they do want some flexibility in where they're going to be over the next 3 or 5 years, or some options. So once they realize that we're not going to kick them out as long as they keep paying their rent, and they can do a 12 plus 12 plus 12 month lease, for example, instead of a 3-year lease, then that sort of security is sort of implied for them anyway. And they say, perhaps I want a 2-year lease instead of a 5-year lease. I think our stats on it are our average lease term at Kensington, which is our first building, is 15 months. And I think we've got 10% overall of our residents that are over 2 years in terms of their lease commitments. So a little bit less than we expected, but I guess that intuitively makes sense.
But still, that long-term lease structure, as well as those baked-in rental increases, well, in my opinion, that's the main kind of anecdote to security and to stress. You know you're not going to get kicked out, and then you're able to really budget for kind of what your rent looks like. Ben, what are the 3 top challenges that our research says about renters' main concerns? Can they be solved by what Matt's just mentioned?
We, in our research, asked renters about their key challenges, and the top concerns really hinge on some of those macro factors.
Mm-hmm.
So things like costs, availability, and competition.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think these are all things that build to rent could alleviate for some people. I love the idea of the fact that because it's not an owner occupier, you can actually think about what is a suitable lease term for me. Like, is it going to be 6 months plus 12, or is it going to be, you know, a bit of a longer lease? But ultimately, you can choose because you haven't got the worry of trying to appease a landlord that may or may not choose to sell.
Isn't that such the other side of the coin, really? Because how, like, you go to a rental and they say you can have it for 12 months and you go, okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much. I'll take it for 12 months. But now you're in the driver's, or the renters, part of me, are in the driver's seat. They go, actually, do I want 12 months?
Yeah. And
I want 6? Do I want 2 years?
And I think there's these one-off situations, and the one that comes to mind is people renovating their house. Which is obviously quite common. They renovate their house. They think it's going to take 9 months. They don't want a 12-month lease because that's 3 months. And, you know, while they're spending all this money on a renovation, they want it fully furnished. They want the utilities signed up day one. They want the internet signed up day one, which is all included within our packages. And they want to sort of leave it as it was, rather than sort of organising moving people and all the rest of it. And that's what we can offer them. We can offer that very bespoke. Do you want a car park? No? Okay, that's fine. Do you want a storage cage? You want 2 storage cages? That's fine too. So it's very, very sort of customised.
But I also think of people not just local to Melbourne, but who are, say, moving to Melbourne for a job for a year,
yes,
or for 2 years. Like, they're on that hard contract. You know, my dad did that. So, you know, was for a year for somewhere else before our family moved over. And so it's kind of like that contract that you're coming over for. You don't want to be in the private rental market wrestling with 50 other people who are going to that open for inspection. It's such a seamless transition into what is a big city, and you're already living in a fantastic spot and everything's just taken care of for you.
To riff on that a little more, you know, your circumstances change within those circumstances. So people, you know, couple up, they have kids, you know, all that sort of stuff. And, you know, as opposed to having to move to, you know, potentially they can go to a 3-bedroom apartment in the building, or they can go to a 2-bedroom apartment that has a bath, because bathing young kids is a thing.
Well, suddenly those big lifestyle changes aren't also coupled with a mountain of logistics.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. So our research also does show that 66% of renters wanted a lease for more than 2 years, which we've already covered that. 43% of renters considering build-to-rent models say it's the long-term leases that would make them consider it. Matt, are these the type of anecdotal conversations that you're having with renters?
It's different for everyone. I think if you kind of consider a few case studies, so, you know, you've got your person moving out of home for the first time. Do they value long-term leases and security of tenure? Probably not so much. They're going to be valuing the events that we have in our building. They're going to be valuing the amenities, valuing the fact that we've got an on-site team to sort of talk to, because it's the first time they've rented and they don't know how a lot of the systems work and how to behave. You've got your couple, they may have a young child, for example, and they are looking for security. Yes, the amenities and some of the other things, but perhaps they don't attend all the events as much as the younger person does. A different way to frame the word security is safety. Safety is a very big sort of critical, high value item on people's list at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
In accommodation. And we have a lot of people coming to us because we have staffed facilities 6 days a week. We have security, really good CCTV. Our building in Kensington is effectively a fortress. So, you know, it gives them a peace of mind, and it's apartment living as well. So it gives them the peace of mind that there's a lot of safety there.
Yeah.
And, you know, we do get a lot of single females renting out our studios that we think is because of those sort of conditions that we're under at the moment. So it's different parts for different people.
Ben, talk to me about what our research also says renters are looking for.
Yeah, so we're really keen to unpack the types of amenities or features that renters were willing to pay more for. And I guess it kind of builds on the theme that Matt was just talking about, where security and safety is really top of the list. And I guess things like 24-hour, 7 days a week security is a really appealing feature. Something like a private car park that's got really well locked up and kind of security cameras going around. These are not significant investments for someone to do on their own, but when that's bundled in as part of a big apartment block, that becomes a really appealing feature. And I think the third thing that came through was really that furnished apartment as well. So having a high quality furnished apartment you can move in, it removes that stress straight away off the bat and makes the moving experience really nice from day one. We often see a lot of renters feeling stressed long after the move-in date, and that's because they have to unpack things, they have to sort things out and make sure that everything feels like home. Whereas, that approach can mean that you feel like home from day one. And I think the other thing that we saw as well was that's more functional, so safety and security, but also people were willing to pay more for those entertainment and well-being features. Things like a really top-notch gym, an outdoor swimming pool. These are things which renters find highly motivating, and it kind of gives a chance to get more for that rent that you're paying for rather than having to pay for that externally as well.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, I can totally understand after this conversation why 63% of renters are willing to pay more for a gym, why 60% of renters are willing to pay more for an indoor pool. And it's an additional cost that you're not placing elsewhere. And by cancelling your gym membership, as you said, Matt, before, you are saving, it's potentially a couple of grand a year. What features are your residents kind of most appealed by? Do you have any data points around that?
A lot of the features, whilst they're included in your rent, they're booked. So we have, through the app, you can book, and we get a lot of data through that. So we have bookable dining rooms. So you perhaps might have a birthday party, or you just want to have dinner with friends, and perhaps you live in a smaller apartment, you want to invite 10 to 20 people around. You can book those facilities out and host a dinner party.
I can't even fit 10 to 20 people in my house. So
Exactly. So it's, I think there's a lot of people in that camp, and they also, they present beautifully. You can truly host. There's barbecues. There's even sort of TV facilities. So if you want to watch the footy, for example, you can have a more casual day. They're super popular. Co-working, as we obviously expected would be in Melbourne, is very popular. A lot of people still working 1, 2, 3, 4 days a week, working from home. It is a little depressing to be in your apartment by yourself with a screen. So to have co-working downstairs that you can go to, and that you're going to be working around people. I know that motivates me personally, working around people. If you have that set up, you're always going to use that if you can. So that's highly popular. The gym, of course, and it's a 24-hour gym, so it gets used literally at all hours. And I think the point on the gym is that it's not just you get a free gym membership. It's literally in your building. There are no excuses anymore. And also the cinema rooms. So we have cinema rooms, and people can hook their games consoles up to them. Yeah, they're very popular as well.
So I know Local kind of talk about this simple and smart living in your home design. What do you mean by that?
You're moving somewhere for the first time, signing up utilities, signing up your internet. We sort of look to solve all of those issues in our sort of sign up process. So it's a single application you can have furniture. So we will beautifully furnish your apartment. We just include that as a part of the rent, but that's optional. You can have a cleaner. We have cleaners on site. So if you'd like us to clean your apartment once a week, once a day, we can do that for you. We have car share in the building as well. So it's really just everything included, plus those sort of events as well. And those events are really important because we do events of people moving in that have moved in at similar times, so that so it's not too cliquey, in other words. So if you moved in the month of November, you get to meet up with everyone that's moved in the month of November, so that the people that are already in the building, you don't have to start relationships with them necessarily, or you've got someone to talk to at least at the events. And we've got very friendly and warm kind of on-site team anyway to get everyone out of the shells.
Before we wrap up, I do have one question for you both. Ben, I want to start with you. What do you see for the future of homes in the way we rent and live?
For me, it's going to be that there's this focus on where people are living, and making it work for you means that we're going to see more non-traditional ways of looking at property. So whereas we've traditionally seen people focusing on saving to buy the home, I think it's going to continue to give rise for more innovative property models. So we've talked about build to rent today as an example, but I think that's going to continue, where people are actually looking for flexibility and making sure that their property situation can really suit their needs at the time, rather than sacrifice something with that longer 30-year term process going on.
Well, Matt, then what's your prediction for the future of professional renting models?
I agree with Ben, but I think what we're focused on as a business at the moment is trying to make build to rent more attainable, more affordable in general, because we're all aware of the cost to build and cost of land and the cost to run and all these sort of elements that make up building a building, but bringing that to everyone is kind of what we're keen on, because we see the model as sort of scalable, not just for the sort of top 5 or 10% of renters, but for everyone. So yeah, we're really focused on the affordable side of things, and we do 10% minimum impact housing in all our developments, but we're looking at increasing that. But yeah, to do that will be a lot of innovation and a lot of hard work, and yeah, that's what we're focused upon.
Thanks so much to both of you for giving me your time today, and I hope you've enjoyed our conversation. Thanks for joining me. This has been Real Talk. For your weekly fix, please follow wherever you listen to your podcasts, and tune in next time for more real questions, news and insights on the topics that matter most from realestate.com.au, Australia's #1 address in property. All information provided is general information and opinion based on current market conditions. These opinions should not be treated as investment advice. Always obtain advice based on your individual circumstances.
Real Talk acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, air and community. We pay our respects to elders past and present.